Why are you barefoot? Rich CEO saw her in cold outside supermarket and couldn't walk away. One evening a little girl was walking barefoot near the supermarket. The ground was cold and her feet were red. She held an old teddy bear in her arms and shivered in the wind. Richard Hayes, a rich CEO, stepped out of his car. He saw the girl and stopped. He looked at her feet and felt a heavy pain inside. He walked closer and bent down. Why are you barefoot? He asked. The girl looked at him with fear. Her voice was low. I lost my shoes. Mama is sick at home. I came here to ask if someone can help. Richard watched her hug the teddy bear tightly. People passed by, but no one cared. He could not move away. He took off his gloves and placed them on her small hands. Keep these, he said. The girl's eyes filled with tears. She whispered, thank you. In that moment, Richard knew he could not leave her. Something had changed in his heart. That was the beginning. Richard stood in silence for a moment. The girl's words echoed in his mind. Mama is sick. I came to ask if someone can help. Her small voice carried more weight than anything he had heard in years. He looked around. People were busy with their own lives. No one stopped. No one cared. But he couldn't move away. His heart told him to act. What is your name? Richard asked softly. Emily, she whispered. Richard nodded. Emily. I will help you. Don't be afraid. Emily hugged her teddy bear tighter. She wanted to believe him, but she had seen too many faces walk past without care. Still, something in his voice felt different. Richard stood and removed his coat. He wrapped it around her shoulders. The coat was too big for her, but it gave warmth. She looked up with wide eyes. You'll get cold, she said. I'm fine, Richard replied. You need it more than I do. For the first time, Emily gave a small smile. It was faint, but it broke through the darkness of the night. Richard felt a spark inside. Where do you live? He asked. Emily pointed toward a narrow street across from the supermarket. Down there. A small room. Richard thought for a moment. He couldn't just take her with him without knowing more. But he also couldn't let her walk barefoot back into the freezing night. Let's go together, he said. Emily hesitated. Mama said not to go with strangers. Richard knelt again. Your mother is right. But I promise I only want to help. If you like, we can stop by the shop first. I can buy you shoes. Will that be okay? Emily looked at his face. Something about his eyes made her trust him. She nodded slowly. They walked into the supermarket. The bright lights inside felt like another world compared to the cold street. People looked at them, surprised to see a little barefoot girl with a man in a tailored suit. Richard ignored the stares. He guided her to the clothing section. He found a pair of small shoes lined with soft fur. He knelt and placed them gently on her feet. Better, he asked. Emily moved her toes and nodded. Warm. Richard smiled. Good. He also picked a warm jacket and handed it to her. She hesitated. It's too much. Nothing is too much for you, he said firmly. You deserve it. At the counter, the cashier gave Richard a strange look but said nothing. He paid and took Emily's hand. Her hand was tiny, cold even with the gloves, but she didn't pull away. Outside, the wind hit again, but now Emily was covered. Richard felt relief, but the weight in his chest remained. He still didn't know how bad her mother's condition was. Can you take me to your home? He asked. Emily nodded. Yes. Mama will be happy someone cares. They walked down the narrow street. The pavement was cracked, walls covered with old posters. At the end stood a small building. Emily led him inside, up a creaking staircase, and stopped at a door. She pushed it open. The room was dim. A woman lay on a thin mattress, coughing weakly. Her face was pale, her body frail. She tried to sit up when she saw Richard but fell back. Mama. Emily whispered, running to her. This man helped me. The woman's eyes filled with tears. Emily, you shouldn't have stayed outside so long. Richard stepped forward. My name is Richard Hayes. I saw your daughter near the supermarket. She was cold and barefoot. Please don't be upset with her. She was only trying to help you. The woman looked at him with tired eyes. She wanted to speak but her voice broke into coughs. Richard felt his heart tighten again. He looked around the room. It was nearly empty. A small table, 2 chairs, a broken lamp. No food, no medicine. It was survival at its lowest. Have you seen a doctor? Richard asked. The woman shook her head weakly. No money, no chance. Richard made a decision in that moment. You will see a doctor tonight, he said firmly. The woman tried to protest but Richard raised his hand gently. Please, let me do this, for Emily. For you. Emily held her teddy bear and looked between them. She didn't fully understand who this man was, but she knew he was different. Richard pulled out his phone and made a call. His voice was sharp, commanding. Send my private doctor to this address immediately. Bring supplies. Within 30 minutes, a doctor and nurse arrived with bags of equipment. Neighbors peeked from doors, surprised to see a team entering the poor building. Richard stayed by Emily's side while the doctor checked her mother. The nurse set up an IV. The doctor gave medicine and assured Richard the illness could be treated. She's weak from infection and hunger. But with proper care, she will recover. Relief washed over Emily's face. She held her mother's hand tightly. See, Mama. I told you someone would help. Her mother's eyes filled with tears again. She whispered, thank you. Richard simply nodded. Words felt too small for the moment. When the doctor left, Richard turned to the woman. From now on, you are not alone. I will make sure you both have what you need. The woman shook her head. We can't repay you. Richard replied firmly, I don't need payment. Your daughter reminded me what truly matters. Let me do this. Emily looked up at him. Will you come again? Richard smiled softly. Yes, Emily. I will come again. That night, as he left the small room, Richard felt something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose. His world of money and power had never given him this. One barefoot child outside a supermarket had changed everything. And he knew this was only the beginning. Richard could not stop thinking about Emily and her mother. That night, when he returned to his mansion, the warmth and comfort around him felt empty. He sat alone in his living room, staring at the fireplace, but his thoughts were only on the small room he had left behind. He remembered Emily's tiny feet on the cold ground, her small voice, her mother's weak eyes. No business deal, no success had ever touched him this way. He realized he had found something more important than money. The next morning, Richard made a call to his office. Cancel all my meetings today. I have something else to handle. His assistant was shocked. He never canceled meetings. But Richard was clear. His mind was set. He left in his car and went back to the same street where Emily lived. The building looked even smaller in daylight. Children were playing outside with old toys. And neighbors sat on the steps, watching curiously as his black car stopped. Emily opened the door when he knocked. She was wearing the new shoes he had bought. Her face lit up when she saw him. You came back? She said with joy. Richard smiled. Of course I did. How is your mother? Emily stepped aside. She is better. The doctor's medicine helped. Inside, her mother sat up on the bed, still weak but stronger than before. She looked at Richard with gratitude. You have already done so much. I don't know how to thank you. You don't need to thank me, Richard said. I only want to make sure you recover fully. You and Emily deserve a better life. Her mother lowered her eyes. Life has been hard since Emily's father passed away. I tried to work, but I fell sick. We lost everything slowly. I didn't want my daughter to suffer, but she has suffered too much. Richard listened in silence. He could feel her pain in every word. He looked at Emily, who hugged her teddy bear and listened quietly. He thought of all the children who never had to worry about food or shoes, and how unfair the world could be. He made a promise to himself. From now on, I will take care of both of you. Her mother shook her head. We cannot be your burden. Richard replied firmly, you are not a burden. You are a family who deserves dignity. Please allow me. Tears filled her eyes. She finally nodded. Richard stood. I will arrange everything. Food, medicine, and a proper home. Emily should go to school. Not sit outside a supermarket in the cold. Emily's face lit up at the word school. She had always dreamed of it but never had the chance. She asked softly, really? I can go to school? Richard knelt down to her level. Yes, Emily. You will go to school. And you will never walk barefoot again. Emily hugged him tightly. It was a pure hug, one that came from trust and hope. Richard felt his heart melt. He realized this little girl had given him something his wealth never had. Meaning. That day Richard sent his team with supplies. Groceries filled the empty shelves. New clothes replaced the torn ones. Medicine was delivered for her mother. Neighbors watched in silence, surprised by the sudden change. But Richard was not done. He called his real estate manager. Find me a safe, clean apartment near the city. Fully furnished. Ready by tomorrow. By evening, arrangements were complete. He returned to Emily's home with the news. Pack your things. You are moving. Her mother looked at him in shock. We cannot accept a house. Richard spoke gently but firmly. You must. That place is too small and unsafe. Emily needs a proper home. Please trust me. Emily's eyes shone with excitement. Mama, can we go? Please. Her mother hesitated but finally agreed. Richard helped them gather their few belongings. A few clothes, a blanket, Emily's teddy bear. That was all they had. It broke his heart to see how little they owned. When they arrived at the new apartment, Emily ran inside first. She gasped at the sight of a soft bed, bright curtains, and a warm kitchen filled with food. She laughed and twirled around the room. Mama, look! It's so big! Her mother stood in silence, tears streaming down her face. She turned to Richard. Why are you doing this for us? You don't even know us. Richard paused. He had asked himself the same question. But the answer was simple. Because I couldn't walk away. Because Emily reminded me that life is not about money. It's about people. And because you deserve hope. Her mother cried. But this time they were tears of relief. She whispered, God bless you. Richard smiled softly. Take rest. Tomorrow will be a new beginning. That night, Richard left their new home with a strange feeling inside him. For years he had been surrounded by luxury, but he had never felt this kind of peace. Helping Emily and her mother had filled an emptiness he didn't even know existed. Back at his mansion, he looked around at the giant rooms, expensive art, and endless silence. For the first time, it all felt meaningless compared to the laughter he had just heard from Emily. He realized his life was changing. And deep down, he didn't want to stop it. Richard woke early the next morning. His first thought was not of his company, not of the stock market, but of Emily and her mother in their new home. He had spent years chasing success, but for the first time, he wanted to check on someone else before checking his emails. He skipped breakfast in his mansion, and drove straight to the apartment he had arranged for them. When he knocked, Emily opened the door with her teddy bear in her arms. Her face lit up when she saw him. You came again, she said with joy. Richard smiled. Of course. How is your mother? Emily pulled him inside. Her mother was sitting on the couch wrapped in a blanket. She looked healthier than before. Her cheeks had a little color, and the cough had lessened. Good morning, Richard, she said weakly. The medicine is working, I feel stronger. Richard nodded. That's good. But you need more rest. I will arrange for regular check-ups. Her mother lowered her eyes. I don't want to depend on you for everything. You're not depending, Richard said firmly. I'm helping because I want to. One day, when you're healthy, you will stand on your own again. For now, let me take care of things. Emily listened quietly, hugging her teddy. She looked at Richard with eyes full of trust. She had already started seeing him as more than a stranger. Almost like family. Richard sat down and looked around the apartment. It was warm, safe, and filled with groceries, but he wanted more for them. He wanted Emily to have a future. Emily, he said gently, have you ever gone to school? She shook her head. No. Mama taught me letters at home. But I never went to a real school. Would you like to? He asked. Her eyes widened. Yes. I always wanted to. I see other children with books and bags. I want that too. Richard smiled. Then tomorrow we'll go. I'll take you to a good school. And you will start learning with other children. Emily jumped with excitement. Really? Tomorrow? Les, Richard said. Tomorrow. Her mother's eyes filled with tears. You are giving her the dream I could never afford. I don't know how to thank you. Richard leaned forward. Don't thank me. Just get better. That's enough. The rest of the morning passed with laughter. Emily showed him the new jacket he had bought, spinning around proudly. Richard felt warmth spread through him. He hadn't smiled this much in years. When he left, he promised to return the next day. That night in his mansion, he thought about his own childhood. His parents had given him everything. Good schools, comfort, safety. But they had also been distant. more focused on business than love. He realized that while he had grown into a successful man, he had never truly felt what Emily gave him now. Pure trust and affection. The next day, Richard arrived with a new surprise, a small backpack filled with books, pencils, and a lunchbox. Emily's eyes sparkled when she saw it. She hugged the bag tightly. "It's mine. All yours," Richard said. "Every student needs these." Her mother helped her get ready. When Emily stepped out wearing her new shoes, jacket, and backpack, she looked like a different child. No one would guess she had been barefoot in the cold only days ago. Richard drove them to a private school he trusted. Teachers welcomed them warmly after hearing who had brought Emily. He had already paid for her enrollment and supplies. Emily walked nervously into the classroom. Children turned to look at her. She held her teddy bear for courage, but when she glanced back and saw Richard smiling at her, she felt brave. "Go on, Emily," he encouraged. "You'll do great." She took a seat, and soon her nervousness faded. She listened to the teacher, wrote her first letters on a page, and smiled brightly. Richard stood by the door, watching proudly. For him, this moment was more powerful than any business award he had ever received. Seeing Emily finally sit in a classroom filled his heart with pride. After school, Emily ran to him. "I learned new words, and the teacher said I did well." Richard laughed. "I knew you would." Her mother was waiting outside. She saw Emily's smile and whispered to Richard, "You gave her a new life." Richard looked at both of them. "No. She gave me one too." From that day, visiting Emily and her mother became part of his routine. Every morning he checked on them before work. Every evening he asked Emily about her school day. His once empty schedule was now filled with purpose. At work people noticed the change. He smiled more, worked with energy, and treated employees with kindness he had never shown before. His assistant whispered to a colleague, "The boss seems different these days." No one knew the reason. Only Richard did. One night, as he walked back to his mansion, he realized he no longer wanted to return to an empty home. He wanted laughter, he wanted warmth, he wanted family, he wanted to be near Emily and her mother. His life had changed forever the moment he had asked, "Why are you barefoot?" And deep down, he knew this was only the beginning of a much greater journey. 2 weeks passed, and Richard's life continued to change. Every day he visited Emily and her mother. He brought groceries, checked on her health, and helped Emily with her school lessons. Slowly, the little girl who had once sat shivering barefoot outside a supermarket was now full of life, learning new things each day. Richard found himself looking forward to every moment with her. She laughed freely now, and her smile had become the brightest part of his day. Her mother was recovering too. With medicine, food, and care, her strength returned little by little. One evening, Richard sat with Emily in the living room of their new apartment. She was drawing with crayons he had given her. On the paper, she drew 3 people, herself, her mother, and Richard. All were smiling, holding hands. Richard looked at the picture and felt his chest tighten with emotion. "Is this your family?" he asked. Emily nodded. "Yes, you are part of our family now." Her innocent words touched him deeply. For years he had lived in a mansion filled with silence. Now, in this small apartment, he felt something far greater than wealth. He felt love, belonging, and purpose. Her mother joined them, walking slowly but stronger than before. She looked at the drawing and smiled. "She's right. You have become part of our lives. We will never forget what you've done for us." Richard shook his head. "I didn't do enough. You both gave me more than I ever gave you. I had money but no meaning. You gave me a reason to live." Her mother's eyes softened. "Sometimes God sends people into our lives for a reason. I believe you were sent to us." Richard stayed silent, but in his heart, he knew she was right. As days turned into months, Richard's bond with them grew stronger. Emily called him Uncle Richard, and later, simply, Papa Richard. The first time she said it, Richard's eyes filled with tears. He realized he had finally found the family he had been missing his whole life. Emily's mother fully recovered. She found part-time work that allowed her to stay close to Emily. She no longer felt helpless, and her dignity returned. Richard continued to support them, but now it was not about charity, it was about love. One evening, the 3 of them walked together through the same supermarket street where it all began. Emily held Richard's hand tightly. This time, she wore warm shoes, a cozy jacket, and carried her school bag proudly. Richard looked at her and thought back to that first night. The sight of her small bare feet. The question that changed his life, why are you barefoot? He realized that single moment had been the turning point of his entire journey. Emily looked up at him. Papa Richard, are you happy now? Richard smiled, his heart full. Yes, Emily. I am happier than I've ever been. Her mother walked beside them, her eyes shining with gratitude. Together, they had built something stronger than wealth or power. They had built a family. That night, as Richard tucked Emily into bed, she whispered, "You saved me." Richard shook his head. "No, Emily, you saved me." The room was quiet, but the silence was no longer empty. It was the silence of peace, of love, of a story that had come full circle. Richard Hayes, once a lonely CEO with everything money could buy, had finally found the one thing he had been missing, family. And it all began with a barefoot child outside a supermarket. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with others. Thank you so much for giving your precious time.